Spartans, what is your profession?
Rat bonker!
Rat bonker! Rat bonker!
That's right, today we're going to be playing as the Spartans. Now I'm sure you all know the 100% historically accurate story of the 300 led by King Leonidis, who held the pass of Thermopylae against 1 million rats. So in honor of such an incredible historical feat, we shall attempt to match this greatness by holding back scores of rats, just as King Leonidis once did. To achieve this, we'll be doing the Vermintide endgame scenario, cranked up 200% and with zero warning, just the way the Spartans would do it. I'm going to set this to happen somewhere between turn 50 and turn 100 to give me some time to prepare. This will be on very hard, with the AI stats boosted out of their mind. And to adhere to ultimate Spartan manliness, we will abide by a couple of strict rules. Number 1, we will fight every battle. No auto-resolving allowed. There will also be no retreating from any battle either, lest King Leonidis curse us with wimpiness. So our story begins in Sparta, also known as modern-day Old World Tilia. We have Leonidis with some Spartan youths and a second army which has some units we don't want. United faction units. They have men in them other than Spartans, so we're not interested. There was also some swordsmen, but I wasn't sure they were very Spartan, and I consulted Rome 2's Spartan roster where there is no swordsman, so we'll only be using spear melee infantry. Now at the moment we basically have Spartan youths, so a bunch of teenagers. We're going to recruit some hoplites or hoplates, however you'd like to say it, and then we're going to head on to our first challenge, one that was common in the ancient Greek world, dealing with zombie pirates.
Yarr!
With the help of King Leonidis, we are going to besiege this settlement to try and take it nice and early. Luckily, they come out to fight us, so we don't have to fight a goddamn siege. To start this battle, we blasted away at them with our heavy onager, and the Spartan youths braced themselves for the incoming zombos. Now, all of our Spartan units have this phalanx shield wall ability, which does quite a lot for them. A lot of mass, a lot of charge defense, allowing them to be the formidable wall they should be. But this is Sparta, so everything is tough as fuck. The archers, they're pretty good in melee. The onager men, the ones just firing the trebuchet, they're even better than the Spartan youths. But our first problem tries to sneak up on us on the right, as there is a bloated corpse accompanied by some bats. I send my lord and some javelins over, but they can't get rid of it before it gets to my lord. But this is absolutely fine, as we're Spartan, tough as fuck, and they've wiped out their own bat. The enemy frontline arrives to our Spartan boys, who are ready for action. The only dangers here is some handgunners and these bombers who are blowing my Spartan boys all over the place. Eventually King Leonidis arrives with his youths to get some flanking in, and eventually we're able to wear the enemy down to take that victory. So with the Sartosa Island secured, we now have a nice little province, and like the Spartans, we're not really going to expand too much. Now because this Spartan army is based off Tilian Empire, the names are kind of Italian, which doesn't really fit our Spartan boys, so we will give this lord a much more appropriate name.
Double Lord Derry.
Perfect. And just in case you're unfortunately not British, Ard means hard, which means tough, and if you're double Ard, it means you're double tough, and that's our Gary, hence the name
Double Lord Derry.
Now our next problem was back up north, and it is of course Ikit Claw of the Skaven. Now I have to confess, I haven't really played endgame scenarios for a long time, or very much anyway, let alone playing the Skaven one, so I didn't really have any idea how this worked, other than that loads of Skaven would be coming for me when it kicked off. So I assumed that if I took out Ikit now, he wouldn't be a problem when the Vermintide came. So that's my way of thinking at the moment. Now luckily we have our friend Julius Caesar of the Romans nearby. Him and King Leonidis were definitely around at the same time. Now they were already at war with Ikit, so I offered to join their war in exchange for a few things. Hold on, Julius, you're looking a bit suspicious there, mate. That doesn't, what? Anyway, we headed towards Skaven Blight, but they did have a couple of armies. One of them tried to underway past us. Now, of course, we fought this battle, but not before taking a nuke to the face. But we're Spartans, we've been nuked before, and we'll be nuked again, so we'll be fine. These Spartan youths are just going to go and have a bit of a sit down, and then they better get back to work. You see, the beauty of all our Spartan infantry is that it's all unbreakable, so it literally is never going to go anywhere. Now, if you want some Spartan facts, they did use some cavalry in battle sometimes, and also war lions. If there's any people that you could believe was able to tame lions and use them for war, I think it would be the Spartans, no? I had these flank around with the cavalry to try and get behind the enemy to stop those warp fire throwers, namely, which the war lions had a field day with, and then a little bit of hammer and anvil on the remaining infantry, and that was job done. Over the turn, there appeared to be 3 armies, and Julius was tangling with one of them, but there was only 1 army in Skaven Blight, and the other 2 were out of range, so I figured if I'm going to be able to take this, it's going to be now. So we went for it. I started off by putting some holes in the wall on one side, whilst my Cavan Lions tried to attack the doors and get in that way on the other side, but somehow half of one of my cavalries managed to sneak inside the settlement, and I was able to get them to stand at the gate to be able to open it for the rest of my stuff, and we had an easy way in. This drew pretty much the entire Skaven army over to the other side of the settlement, allowing my main army just to walk in mostly unchallenged. We were then able to systematically move our way through the settlement, clearing all the rats as we went, taking the capture points wherever we could, but it just wasn't really getting anywhere. The favor bar was still going for them. We were getting rid of their units, but they were still wearing us down, and by the end of it, as you can see by what's left of my army, I had no choice but to go after the capture points, as they still had some fairly tough, fairly healthy units left, but we got there in the end, at the cost of many good Spartans' lives. But now one of their other armies was heading for our capital, Sparta, where we only had a 10-unit garrison, but those are Spartans, so 1 Spartan man's worth at least 100 rats. But I recruited an extra lord to deal with their lords and heroes, but he needed a renaming. Carlo Ganza didn't really fit. This was an emergency, so he became Emergency Carlo. And over the turn, Carlo became besieged, but this was fine. We had time to get an army over there, and even Julius Caesar and his Roman boys came to join in this battle to help us defend. Not that we really needed them, as the enemy army was a little bit beaten up already, so our boys just stood their ground, did their thing, ate a little bit of warp fire to the face, but Leonidas went and put a stop to that pretty quick, and before you know it, this rat army was done. We then just had to chase them down, beat them down. In what was a pretty straightforward battle, we just choke pointed up and let them come into us. I did manage to find this one lazy Spartan youth though, who will be reprimanded for his laziness, not even trying to attack anything. Jesus Christ. And with that came the end of Clan Scryer, and I thought they were done for. No more Clan Scryer to worry about, it's only the other factions that are going to come for me. Fuck. Now, as you probably know, the Spartans dabbled a little bit in pyromancy, so we're going to recruit ourselves a flame wizard. And when I spoke to him, it turns out he's from Mexico, actually, so we called him
El Flemo.
Now, at this point, turn 20, we had at least 30 turns before the Vermintide came, and we were pretty low on money, so I got rid of
Double Lord Derry.
his army for now, and decided that King Leonidas was going to make money the Scottish way, mostly through theft. But it was okay though, because we were going to go and rob a bad guy. Scarbrand was our target, mostly because he was pretty much the only nearby bad guy we could go for. So we sailed over there and got after the first settlement, to which we had to fight a relentlessly fun minor settlement battle. We won this by mostly just grinding through them. I came into the settlement from different directions, so I got some flanks like so, and it didn't take us too long at all. Our efforts were rewarded with 4 grand, which could have been worse. Nevertheless, we rolled on to the next settlement, shot a bunch of bloodletters in the face, which offered us a rather pathetic 440 for the sack, so I decided just to take this, A, to take it off Scarbrand, and because I'd probably make more than 440 in the few turns that I'm going to hold it. The little bit of money we did make so far was helpful though to upgrade some of the existing buildings, especially the income buildings, so it was helping our economy overall. I was also gifted a warrior priest hero who I tried to actually rename to something kind of Greek sounding. I went for Epidomid, Nomid. I wanted to put Nus on the end, but I couldn't get the S on, so it's Epidominomenomenu. Okay, actually I'm missing an I at the end, so it's Epidominomenomenu. Brilliant. I think that was still wrong. Whatever. Next, I pushed on to Galbaraz, where Scarbrand himself happened to be with a small army, so now we had an actual bit of a fight on our hands. I put a hole in the wall, first of all, sent the dogs and cabin round the backside to draw some enemies over there, and then started to move my main army up. I was trying to avoid too much damage from the towers. Once again, we had to grind our way through their infantry. Things culminated on my army reaching the top of this hill, where Leonidas was throwing down with Scarbrand. Eventually, though, it just turned into a massive blob because Scarbrand can make everything around him rampage and attack him. Eventually, Scarbrand was actually able to fell Leonidas, knocking him straight off his fucking horse.
No.
But not before Leonidas had left Scarbrand fatally wounded, and he slowly withered away, eventually being sent back to the Netherrealm.
Oh, me nuts.
With that, victory came, and once again, no money, so I decided to occupy again. And it turned out that Leonidas hadn't actually been felled, he was still alive, with 1 HP. I guess lords can't die in this mod, or Spartans are just hard as nails. Probably that one. There was another Scarbrand army on the way, though, and we needed to replenish. So I headed for the last settlement in this province, Gronti Mingal, on the coast. But after getting a couple of turns of replenishment, I decided to engage this army, setting up on a bridge to try and get a choke point battle, which they were very keen to engage us in, which was perfect perfect for us. We love a choke point battle after all. And even better, it was only a single choke point as well, so the boys formed up, ready to hold the line at all costs. The enemy approached fast, they had a lot of dangerous units, but we had goddamn Spartans, and I put the youths up front because I figured what better way to turn a boy to a man by having a near-death experience with a blood beast or bloodletter. We had a few tricks up our sleeve though, one of them my artillery, tactically positioned to not hurt our own boys and maximize damage on the enemy. That did some good work flying into the crowds, but we also had our boy
El Flemo.
A couple of burning heads were pretty nasty along some straight lines, and our boys held the line valiantly. Even the youth stuck around, mostly because they're unbreakable. But eventually, even the Wrathmongers decided, fuck this, I'm off home, these Spartans are too hard. Now at this point, I didn't want Skarbrand to take these settlements that I'd taken off him, so I decided to give them to a nearby vampire faction, which seemed appropriate because, as we all know, the Spartans love trading with vampires. So we got a trade agreement and a few grand. Lovely. From here, we just did the same thing with the last settlement as well, got a little bit of money from sacking that, eventually occupied that, and then over the turn, randomly Morgor decides he wants to declare war on me. I answer that by giving the settlement I'd just taken to the Athenians and getting them to join a war against Morgor, and Jesus Christ, King Pericles of Athens really representing the modern-day Greek. Now at this point, we were pretty much done with this area, but there was one more task we needed to achieve, and that was revenge for our boy King Leonidas. He could not be felled by Skarbrand and let that lie. So we tracked him down and headed that way, but he was stood next to a settlement with another small army there with his full stack, so we tried to lure him into a fight over here. We wanted just a straight one-on-one, no ambushes, no frills, and we got it. This was our opportunity for revenge. Once again, we took a hilly defensive position, because that's pretty much the way you have to fight when you're Sparta and you've got only spears. But they came at us hard. Skarbrand came in. His little rampage ability really messes up your formation when he pulls all of your units in, especially the missile units. The Spartan youths were doing a fantastic job holding the flank, stopping the bloodletters from getting behind us, and we got some cav and warline support for them to help finish these units off and get them off the field as quickly as possible. Skarbrand and Leonidas eventually threw down in a long fight that went all over the goddamn place, and eventually after a long and furious battle, and with the help of just one or two javelins, Leonidas was able to fell Skarbrand and take revenge. Yes! With that, a little hammer and anvil on the remaining troops, and that was all she wrote. At this point, we needed to head back now. It was turn 45. The Vermintide was a-comin'. So Leonidas got back and we started to prepare for the potential Vermintide. It could be in just one turn. It was time for
Double-Lord Derek
to rise again with his own army. But on to turn 56, no sign of the Vermintide yet, but there is sign of the Slaughterhorn tribe and Taurox, who I figure I need to get rid of now before the Vermintide comes, because I don't want them declaring war on me when that happens. So I got after their big army, which weirdly didn't actually contain Taurox. He was just running around by himself. And eventually we did get a hold of it. It wasn't anything special, a lot of cheap crappy infantry, although Minotaurs and Cygors. Nevertheless, we didn't mess around in this one, playing a little more aggressive because of those Cygors, marching straight at them from one direction and bringing my main army down the hill to try and flank them. Needless to say, we held their infantry off without any problem at all. The Minotaurs are a little more dangerous, but of course, we're using nothing but spears, so we had plenty of anti-large for them, and then we just needed to get a hold of the Cygors, javelin them to death, and that was the Slaughterhorn tribe mostly dealt with. Apart from, of course, Taurox himself, who we went after and managed to get an underway interception on, but it didn't feel right to just gank on this single lord, so Leonidas rode out to meet him in single combat, one-on-one. Let's see who's the hardest bull in the land. Cue epic duel montage. This battle came properly down to the wire. I had some pikemen there just in case things went wrong here, because it got pretty damn close. Leonidas on the verge of death, Taurox not far off of it. I've been spamming off Leonidas' abilities whenever I can. One of them a 20% damage resistance. Foe Seeker giving him some vigor back as well, buffing up his stats a little. So who is the hardest bull in the land, I hear you cry? Well, it is apparently King Leonidas, because Taurox is going to start to waver. Leonidas, of course, unbreakable, so he's not going anywhere until he's dead. But Taurox, he's quit. He's had enough. Leonidas coming home with his shield, not on it. With that, Slaughterhorn destroyed. We're safe from them. Now, shortly on from this, I'm just engaging in some diplomacy with our friendly Roman boys, and here on turn 60, the Vermintide notification comes. Although I was spamming escape to get rid of my notifications, and I got rid of that too quickly, but here it is. Vermintide is coming, turn 60. Oh, scheisse. Here it was, the moment we'd been waiting for. 1 million rats to deal with. Time for Leonidas to truly show what he's made of. Oh, Clan Scryer's back then. There's 4 Skaven armies. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not at war with me. This doesn't look like 200%. Are you telling me there was only 2 armies that were going to come for me? What is this? Is this broken? What's happening? These were pretty much my thoughts as I saw this for the first time, as I said. I don't really know how these endgame scenarios work. Nevertheless, it was time for Emergency Carlo to come back because I wasn't expecting Clan Scryer to reappear. But at this point, I'm wondering if my video is kind of ruined because this is kind of pathetic and not really that much of a challenge. Nevertheless, I just carried on playing. 2 of the Skaven armies came near my capital. I brought
Double Lord Derek
over to reinforce just in case they decided to declare war on us. Yes. I gave it a few turns to see if they would attack us, but they never did, so I just declared war on them and decided, hey, let's just get after them. So into battle we went, hitting them with the Onager early on, and bringing a new unit to the fight, the famous Spartan Hippogriff Riders. That's right, famously used in the Greco-Persian Wars. These were going to be our key to success against the ranged heavy rats. And with the artillery being dealt with by the Hippogriffs, the Red Cloaks of Sparta pushed onwards to engage our ratty foe. Our armies came in from 2 different directions, occupying all of their melee infantry, leaving all their missile infantry kind of vulnerable in the center. Ikit basically fed himself to Leonidis and the boys, so he wasn't around too long. And slowly but surely, we enveloped in and just crushed the enemy between our 2 armies. The Hippogriffs flying around, smashing into the missile units all over the place, keeping them from doing too much. Ikit exploded in a nuki fire, but didn't really do anything to us because we're Spartans. And with that, 2 of the Vermintide armies were pretty much defeated. We ran them down, killed them off, and prepared to take out the final 2. I decided to take a turn to recruit a bit, but over that turn, they came at Skaven Blight, and we had to fight. Now, obviously, we weren't going to win this, but we could try to do as much damage as possible. So I got all my towers firing, I got my javelins going, I even sent some of the boys out of the settlement to get after some vulnerable missiles and artillery, and we did manage to kill a handful of those off, which is going to help our other armies. So Gary and Leonidis made the push towards Skaven Blight, but they came out to fight us. With like 3.5 stacks, by the way. Not sure where they came from, but scheisse. But hey, we're Spartans, outnumbered is how we like it. The boys were ready and braced in a defensive position for the grind of their lives. We found a little bit of a ridgy rock face here we could use to cover one side. Hopefully we can contain them to that and just win the war of attrition. Now, quite luckily for us, all of the Skaven armies were coming out at the exact same point and we're all waiting there, so literally everything came from the same direction. So I put myself as far away from them as possible to give them a long-ass distance to run. Because of course you can only have 40 units on the map at a time, so their units are going to trickle in and that's going to stagger the influx of them to make it more manageable for us, and they're going to get worn out running all the way across the map. It'll at least buy us time to deal with this massive starting force. So many a rat came for us, the men were ready, El Flamo was dropping the fire. There were some pretty dangerous units in these armies though, in various forms. A lot of mutant rat ogres that were very difficult to keep a hold of. They could just run through our lines like they're not even there. They were causing a pretty big problem, disrupting our lines, disrupting our formation. But our reinforcing army had arrived with the new units we'd been recruiting, the Royal Spartan Hoplites, the best of the best that we could get. They arrived to help us deal with our mutant rat ogre problem, as these boys were triple hard. So they dealt with the rat ogres, bolstered our lines, helped us take out the stupid annoying bell polisher lords that wouldn't shut the fuck up. The rats seemed endless though, eventually culminating with some big boys coming along. They did have that long distance to run though, so it really gave us that time to deal with what was there before anything else arrived. My hippogriffs and cav had been dealing with all the ranged, and then it was just up to the javelins to finish off the hell pits. And with that, we'd weathered the storm of 3.5 Skaven armies. Although at what cost, as Double-Ard Gary's army was absolutely wasted. Even Double-Ard Gary himself nearly fell. We then pushed the settlement and besieged it before they could rebuild anything. Ikit himself tried to sneak past us in the underway, but we said, no, you're dead. It was mostly a job for Hippogriffs and El Flamo. Julius was also putting in some work, taking out some of the smaller armies. And then he even came along to help us with the besieging of Skaven Blight, so that made it a lot easier. They had a full, healthy army. Now, because like 80% of Spartan population was actually just slaves, I decided to enslave the Romans here and let them do all the work. I managed to sneak in and open the doors for them so they could get in nice and easy, and then they would just win us Skaven Blight. Yes! With that, Skaven Blight was once again returned to our possession, and Clan Scryer finally destroyed again. And once again, we reached the point where I remind you, I didn't really know how endgame scenarios work, so I assumed that maybe other Skaven factions were now closing in on me, and I carried on playing. And once again, at the start of the turn, I'm mashing escape, so I skipped that little notification there, and I'm like, oh shit, what was that? It's the ultimate victory. Oh, okay, I've got to do this now. Okay, why is this only just popped up now? That's weird. Hold on a minute, let me check the victory conditions. Clan Square... No, what? I've killed them off twice. What? Oh.
Fuck.
Now at this point the Skaven sent a messenger and he said, look, if you just bend the knee to Ikit, we'll look after you. I said, you're cruising for a knuckle sandwich, you little fluffy dickhead. He said, what? You can't threaten the messenger? This is madness. I said, madness? This isn't Sparta, this is Skaven Blight. I'm off. You can have it. It's a shithole. So over the next turn, I hastily got out of Skaven Blight and tried to head back towards actual Sparta. I just had to pray to Apollo that they weren't going to attack me with 19 armies on that turn, and luckily we only got some underway interception opportunities, which aren't retreats, so I'm just going to deny those for now and hope nobody attacks us. Fuck me, somehow we've survived. They haven't attacked us, they're all over us, but they've not attacked us. They seem to be going after Julius, which is, well, you know, rather him than me. We managed to make it to the water to get back to Sparta that way, and we were able to take a moment to regroup. From here, we went on to attack the one army that had come for us that just so happened to be Ikit's army, but the men were ready to start beating their way through these 8 Skaven armies. In this one, the enemy had a hilly ranged advantage, lots of long-range missiles in this army, artillery. We needed to do something to try and avoid taking a pounding from this, so I moved my entire army over to the left side of the map to try and take a little bit of cover with some trees. This way we could at least block some line of sight of rattling gunners and Jezzails, then we could push on the one side of the enemy army and sweep across. Of course, we sent in the Hippogriffs and other mobility to do as much as they can. Eventually, we reach melee where we've got tons of anti-large for all their large, and of course, we're going to beat the bejesus out of any of their ranged units. So it didn't take too long to mop this army up and just grind our way through it without too much damage from missiles and artillery. So 1 down, 7 to go, and over the turn, 2 of them came over, but old Clan Angrand was nearby with 2 stacks, and they said something.
Hey, don't you fucking worry, mate. We'll knock them out. We'll knock their fucking heads today and take the laptops. Fucking don't you worry about that.
So whatever they said, I think they were just wanting to fight the fight for us, so we just sat back and let them take care of it. And with that, 2 more big Skaven armies were done. Eventually, another army appeared in our faces, and Leonidis didn't want to let Clan Angra do everything, so we took this one on. This was a bit of a downhill affair for us, which was pretty nice. El Flamo dropped a flamestorm right in the middle of the Skaven confusion. I put the boys in phalanx formation and slowly marched them down the hills just to instill a bit of dread into the Skaven at their impending approaching doom, and it was a slow but steady death for them into our meat grinder with hippogriffs and doggos, not doggos, lionos coming around the backos, and boom, another army down. At this point, I went to investigate what all those other Skaven armies had been doing, and it seems like they've been absolutely ravaging the poor Romans. If we were going to try and save them, we needed to launch an assault soon. Now, up to this point, surprisingly, the Skaven had left Skaven Blight alone until now. They've decided to go for it. Again, I sent the boys out to try and do as much damage as possible. We weren't going to win this one, but if we could hurt the enemy army, it could make the retake easier. Although I don't know why I want to retake it at this point. I've taken it and lost it about 15 times. We took out a few units though, but then over the turn, sadness. Rome had fallen. Those poor Romans had succumbed to the Vermintide. We would need to exact revenge for our glorious bro Julius Caesar. And suddenly, we were inspired to take Skaven Blight back just one more time. All the Spartan lives that had been lost taking it, we needed to keep it. So we besieged them once more, but over the turn they get brave and they come out to fight us. Perfect. The royal Spartans were ready for action, but while Leonidis was confused by the enemy's formation and their sheer amount of numbers, El Flamo charged forward and said, "Hey, hold my fucking tequila, cabron!" He then bobbed and weaved his way up to the enemy army and let glory ensue. And with that murderous fiery rampage, El Flamo came away with over 1,000 kills and 5,000 gold's worth of unit damage, cementing his place in history as the most powerful Spartan pyromancer Mexico has ever produced. From here, as you can imagine, the enemy army, although still vast in number, had taken a pretty big pounding from El Flamo alone, so they didn't last too long. We set up a big envelopment and surrounding from all over the place, and they just absolutely crumbled. So another couple of rat armies down and Skaven Blight pretty much reclaimed, but some little cheeky bitch rat army had snuck over to Riff Raffa, one of my smaller settlements, and gone after it. This was a minor settlement battle, so we had the advantage of towers and such. There was a smaller part of the army which had the Lord in it, so I went after that early on and tried to get rid of it, while the rest of their army came into the center. We held them off and eventually pushed that first starting party back through the settlement where a bunch of stuff was, and we just closed them down from the inside. They didn't have enough juice for all our Spartan boys. We then once again took the fight to Skaven Blight. I was planning to build a bunch of siege towers so that we didn't lose too much here. Once again though, Clan Angren appeared and said,
Hey, you alright, mate? You again? You want somebody up with these fucking arms, me? They fucking stink, don't they? Fucking little bastard pricks.
I just kind of nodded and pointed at Skaven Blight. There wasn't much to do here, so I just sent my hippogriffs in to take care of what units they had. The hippogriffs, though, went a bit too far and they took it too extreme and they hit the enemy so hard, they not only froze the game, but managed to crash it as well. Brilliant. So I just reloaded, did the same again more carefully, and it was fine. So with that, we now reclaimed Skaven Blight. The little army that attacked Riff Raffa was being chased by a Clan Angren army. And eventually I started to push on the Skaven territory that they'd taken, because obviously there was 8 armies, but now they've had settlements. They probably built some more armies. So we quickly took this place and then headed east. We found Rome, which was a capital. I couldn't be asked with a siege, so I let the dwarves take care of that one. I was planning to head to Nuja. I stood on a choke point just in case, because I can't really see where the rat armies are at this point. But I quickly find out as they get an ambush on me, Ikit himself, probably with more than one army, so we're gonna have to see what we get. But I'm not too worried here. You see, I've been recruiting some new units, and one of them is these boys. Now you might be thinking, hey, they look pretty cool overall, but maybe some more perspective is needed. You see, these boys are fucking huge. They're basically Astartes. These are Space Marine Spartans. Now, I've only got the one unit of them because they take a while to recruit, but they're at the front of my army. They're pretty big boys. The ambush kicks off, but they're not really surrounding us, so we're able to run straight for the hill. That's where I'm going for. We got a nice big defensible hill here. I then come to notice that there's one reinforcing army over here, another one over here, and another one at the back, so that's 4 stacks coming after us, although they are full of a lot of crappy Skaven slaves and clan rats. So we make it to the top of the hill. It was a bit of a faff, but we got there in the end. The rats start coming, but the Royal Spartans probably aren't really too worried. An enemy Bell Polisher Lord comes in though. We got to try and get rid of him as quickly as possible. So in go the Astartes boys. I think these are actually called the Demigods of Sparta. But they are going to put this thing away pretty damn quickly with the help from some javelins. And then it's that Spartan war of attrition once more from all the rats coming from all the different directions. Another frickin' Bell Lord rolls in, but the Demigods are on it. And the way the enemy's reinforcements were coming in, they were just a slow trickle from different directions, so really not a lot to manage. Eventually I sent the the Spartan Minotaurs out to just go and finish off what was running around. Those were of course famously used in the Peloponnesian Wars, probably. El Flamo of course did his part as well, eventually finishing off the enemy lord with a fireball straight in the bell. But with that done, we'd beaten down the 4 Skaven armies, and over the turn, Clan Angren went for Rome as we'd hoped. They asked us to get involved, but we said, you're probably alright boys, you can handle it. So we let them take care of that. They only sacked it though, so we were able to take it on the next turn. We then scouted around to find there were still many Skaven armies around we were going to have to deal with. Nevertheless, we pushed on to the remaining settlement in this province. This battle just so happened to be on the exact same map we just played on, so we kind of just did the same thing again. A lot more dangerous ranged units in this army though, so the hippogriffs and lions had to get after them. But nevertheless, another province in the bag, but still a lot of ratty armies and they were on the move. This looked like an opportunity though to get them all in one go. So I went and positioned myself at a nearby choke point in the hope of getting a choke point battle, of course. There was a lot of armies though, so we needed
Double Lord Derry
as a bit of backup just in case. So we sat at the pass near Rome and waited for the Skaven to come and get us. And they did oblige us. They came after us. It was a choke point battle, although a double choke point battle. Now, obviously, I had to do it. I had to try just using 300 good Spartan men to hold this pass. Even King Leonidis himself had got off his horse and joined the unit. They were ready and raring to slay some rats. The rest of the army was just enjoying a fire show that El Flamo would put on while they waited, and there was also 208 men defending the other little pass. But the main bulk of the enemy army was coming for the 300. They were braced and ready for all kinds of mole rats, regular rats, fucked up mutant rats. You name it, they would take it on. But it turns out 300 men is not quite enough to take on some of the toughness that was coming our way, so we did have to get a few extra men involved, but that's fine, because, you know, while there was 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, there was also, 700 Greeks. So my Minotaurs here, they're the Greeks, that's fine. The other little pass was holding up just fine. They had a lot of the easier stuff to deal with, so they weren't too much trouble with the Astartes there. I also had my hippogriffs doing probably the most important work of taking care of all the missile units that were in the back as well. Eventually, we worn them down, routed them off, and the 300, plus a few extras, had done it. From here, I just had to finish off what armies they had left. This one had the big army coming in as reinforcements, so we just boxed around it as it arrived and just absolutely ruined its life, routing it straight off the battlefield. And then straight away after, on the next turn, we finished up what was left in this region. This was pretty much a straight up smash fest. At this point, we've massively thinned out the Skaven numbers, killing 4, 5, 6 armies, I don't even know anymore, but there's still a whole bunch left. I want to start pushing on these final 2 Skaven settlements, Montanus here. I scout it though and find another big army there. I decide to pop myself in ambush where I'm stood, and we actually managed to get them. So the boys get after them in full force, burning head and all. Hippogriffs making sure all those missile units don't do anything. They're some of the most dangerous parts of these armies. There's a whole bunch of Hell Pit abominations to take out though, but with a little bit of focus firing from our javelins, it doesn't take long to churn through those, and this army is quickly on its way to absolute decimation. All that's really left then is a whole bunch of storm vermin, which El Flamo helps a little bit with, and another big strong Skaven army taken care of, and hopefully the last big... No, okay. This battle is a little bit of a messy uphill march forward, but obviously we got the job done by the usual means. There was nothing they could do to get through us. And with that, a couple of beaten up Skaven armies remained. I decided to take Montanus, and if they wanted to try and take it off me, they could certainly try. But over the turn, those 2 armies seemingly disappeared. I'm going to guess Clan Angrid maybe had a hand in that. Carcassonne was besieging the last Skaven settlement, and then over the turn, peace had been restored once again as Clan Scryer, for like the 18th time this campaign, was fucking destroyed. Let's hope they stay dead this time. And with that, we conclude the story of how King Leonidas and the Spartans survived the Vermintide. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, do consider channel membership so you can get early access to videos, some exclusive videos, or Patreon for some similar rewards. If you like more of this stuff, I got a few here. Shout out to the Total Warhammer mod I used for this, link in the description. Otherwise, I'll see you in the future.
Oh, hey, look, I did see you in your future. How you do, mate? You do finish the video. I mean, fucking, can I watch it? Fucking...